So I'd like to talk a bit about the Istanbul Convention on violence against women. Can you explain to us in general terms, what is this convention? What is it about?
Perhaps I'll just start by giving you its full title again. It's the Council of Europe Convention on Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence. And actually, it does what it says on the tin. Basically, the convention is there to protect all women from violence of all kinds, violence to which they are subjected largely because they are women, or to which women, or by which women are disproportionately affected. So it covers, of course, issues of violence like rape. Clearly, that is a crime which is perpetrated on women more than on men. It also covers female genital mutilation, which is clearly a crime which only women are subjected to. But in addition, issues like domestic violence, whether that be physical or sexual violence within the home, is suffered far more by women than by men, and that's why the convention is there in order to protect women in all their aspects of life, whether it be in the home, in the workplace, on the street, wherever it may be, protect them from the violence to which they are subjected.
So it means that basically countries have to make these things illegal if they're not already illegal.
That's right. The substantive legal provisions of the convention require that a number of forms of conduct are made crimes. If they're not already criminalized, as you say, they have to do so on or before ratifying the convention. So these would include sexual harassment, psychological violence, physical violence, stalking, female genital mutilation, as I said, forced abortion, forced sterilization, rape, etc. And these are very often forms of conduct which are already criminalized, some are not. The one exception is that as regards sexual harassment, countries are encouraged to make it a crime, but they can also sanction it by other means.
And does it also cover issues like shelters for women who've been abused, for example?
Of course. The beauty of the convention is that it is not limited to this substantive legal text. It actually takes a holistic approach to the problem of violence against women and keeps the victim at the center. Countries are required to make sure that the most important person in the whole process is the victim. And therefore, they have to provide services to help the victim, whether those be general services like housing, employment assistance, or specialist services. And here, of course, we come to the very important question of shelters, hotlines, helplines, crisis centers, rape crisis centers, counseling centers for women who have been victims of these types of crimes.
The convention's been quite controversial in several countries. Why is that?
There's a number of countries who seem to be objecting to certain aspects of the convention. One is the Article 14 on education. And some countries, or some people in some countries, appear to be interpreting that article as requiring that states teach children about sexual orientation. There actually is nothing in the convention that talks about sexual orientation. Other countries have alleged that the convention requires that states recognize same-sex marriage. The convention does not deal with the question of same-sex marriage at all. It does require that states not discriminate on the grounds of people's sexual orientation, but that doesn't mean recognition of same-sex marriage. That's a long way down the line. There are other countries who have indicated that the asylum and migration provisions in the convention would require that countries accept as refugees anyone who claims to be a transgender woman fleeing persecution in Iraq. Well, it's not the convention that might do that. There may be other provisions in a country's law that would do that, but it certainly doesn't come from our convention.
And a lot of people would say we already have rules in our country to stop women being subjected to violence. What's the point of having a European or international convention on this?
I think there's a number of points. First of all, there may be rules today in a certain country, there may be laws making certain conduct criminal, or there may be certain laws providing for shelters, or whatever it may be, whichever aspect of the convention it may be, but those laws can be changed if the government changes. Laws are not necessarily fixed forever, but an international treaty means that the country has ratified a treaty and has agreed to be bound by it for all time. Secondly, those countries will be monitored. We will check what they're doing. We will go in and look and say, yes, you're doing this, and no, maybe you haven't got enough shelters, or maybe you're not doing enough to make sure that the police have the right attitude when a woman comes in to complain about domestic violence, etc. And thirdly, it gives us an arena. We have not only do we have an expert monitoring body, we also have what in the Council of Europe jargon is called a Committee of the Parties. Within the Council of Europe framework, we can get the countries, the parties, to talk to each other, to exchange best practices, to share ideas about what works and what doesn't work. And finally, of course, it actually brings the issue out into the open and to the attention of people all over Europe. And I think that's also a very important aspect of the fact that it is an international convention.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.